I will be taking over.
Welcome to the
Be
November
ready.
16th Board of Directors meeting. We will start the meeting with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we move on to our first item, it's my understanding that we are going to need a motion to table number 5, the second reading of policy JICK, because they were not able to meet. So do we have a motion to table that?
So moved. I'll second this.
And all in favor of tabling that? Okay. Moving on to public input, our vice chair will lead our public input statement.
The first public input session is a 21-minute session with each person having no longer than 3 minutes in which to make a statement, but a second public input session may be held at the end of the meeting if allowed by the board chair. Each speaker will give his/her name, address, and a reason for speaking. Public input is designated for district residents, but the board chair may grant non-residents the opportunity to address the board. Statements concerning subject matter that falls under the law regarding executive sessions, for example, matters involving personnel, cannot be made during public input. We, as a community, pledge to treat each other as we wish to be treated. We pledge to seek understanding when there may be disagreement. Regardless of outcomes or opinions, we pledge to move forward with respect. This time is for comments as opposed to questions.
Thank you. And do we have any public input? No? Okay. Then we will move on to the minutes of November 2nd. Any discussion?
I think there's an error, because there's an unfinished sentence on this.
Lauren, where are you?
I wasn't sure. I read, I think it was something I said
Under
too.
other?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, something I said.
It says, Ms. shared the board her appreciation for the administration, all the buildings,
Oh,
more
yeah,
so
yeah.
knowledgeable after.
I think probably after, I've only been there for such a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, sorry about that. Perfect, I will adjust that. Thank you for that.
Another discussion, is there a limit to what we serving on the policy committee?
So that is a question that we will follow up with, because
Yeah, we did reach out.
we just haven't got a final answer.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 2nd meeting.
As amended.
As amended.
All in favor?
Oh, I'm abstaining.
Moving on to financial summary.
Okay, so you should have had the financial summary through October shared with you.
There's a hard copy going around, just in
Okay.
case anybody wants a copy.
I don't need
I will say that one.
Again, we are collecting our revenue in line. Most of our revenue, I believe it's 98% maybe, comes from both the towns and the state of Maine, and they're regular payers to us, so we appreciate that. Expense-wise, the two areas I'm most concerned with at this point are the private charter buses for athletics and electricity. So I'm continuing to follow those, but they are trending in line with where they have been. So we've used, let's see, 56.3% of our charter buses of the annual budget at this point. Again, we're hoping that as the year goes on, we hire more bus drivers, so we're able to transport those teams directly with our staff. And then electricity, we're, compared to last year at this point, we had spent 28.65% of our budget. This year, we're at 27.02. So we're roughly in the same space percentage-wise. But those are the areas I'm focusing on. Anybody? All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Employment.
We don't have any new hires, but we do have 2 resignations. One just came in, so you haven't received that copy. The first one is Bridget Van Hook from Special Education and Noble Middle School, and she has received a job closer to home. So we do need a motion and a second for that.
To accept that letter of resignation.
All in favor?
And the next one is Brenda France, who is our Excel teacher at Knowlton School. And Brenda has received a full-time position in a different district, so she's resigning for that.
So we need a motion.
Oh, she's been in the district.
23 years.
Yeah, the motion to approve with initiation, yeah. Yeah, that's,
Second? All in favor?
I'm sorry, who seconded that? Was that you? Thanks.
Those are the only updates we have for employment.
Superintendent update.
Sure, so our first update, we're just following up on the email that Josh had sent requesting 2 pieces of information. The first one was about achievement tests, or what we're doing for testing. So we did, at the request of Elva, create a document. I think there's too many that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do this.
We created a document, and we'll talk
That's
through
funny.
this a little bit for you. Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, maybe. I got a little excited, sorry.
Thank you.
So we have talked a few times about our assessment data, and then there was the follow-up question just about what are we doing and what grade levels are we working through things, and when are we testing, and who is receiving the results. So this document is all encompassing of K-12, of what we are covering. And as you can see, I won't go through all of them, but I'll just start like with the dial 4. That is for incoming kindergarten students. So in the state of Maine, all incoming kindergarten students need a screener. So we've used the dial for 4th edition. And then the main purpose is, to evaluate the developmental skills, motor skills, conceptual and perceptual abilities, language skills, social and emotional development. So our teachers screen for that, and then our teachers at the end of the screening will meet with parents and talk through some of those areas, those scores. This is also a screener that we've used with families to support families when, if they've noticed like an articulation or something, in their student, before they can come in, before they get into kindergarten, if they want to pursue that through child development services. So it's a really good tool, not only for the school, but it's also a good tool for parents to bring forward to get some additional support for their student before they start school. So I'll just go through a couple others. So we do a lot of early literacy assessments, kindergarten to 2nd grade. So we assess sounds with the alphabet, letter sound fluency, phonemic awareness, phonics, high frequency words. And then on the when column, fall, winter, spring, and as needed. Sometimes we will do that in between sessions for ongoing assessment, and then the results go to teachers and parents. The benchmark assessment, which is for reading, for literacy. It's kindergarten to 5th grade. We identify students' current reading levels, identify reading behaviors, monitor progress and growth, pinpoint areas of strength and areas that require further support, and inform instructional decisions and tailor reading instruction to individual student needs. That again is the fall, winter, spring, and that's teachers, educational technicians that may be working with students, as well as parents. That is not the only time we are assessing students in literacy. Ongoing throughout the week and throughout weeks during literacy groups and formal reading instruction, teachers are taking a running record, a formative assessment, working with students to continue to make sure that they're at the right level. Can they move up a level, or also making sure that we're teaching them everything that they need at that level. So that's that. gosh, these were the ones, the bugaboos, right? The
Well-
NWEA.
Well, I was just
Yeah.
curious, so just, and I didn't know if
Sure.
you wanted to ask questions that you're going through, or if you'd rather just kind of do your
I'm
presentation
just
and then
gonna
ask
do,
questions.
yeah,
Okay,
sure.
great.
So the
great.
NWEA, we use for two purposes. So that is the state test, and we had Dr. Shannon Swiger in here, our curriculum coordinator, director of teaching and learning, in here earlier this year to talk about that piece for the state. We also use it for growth, to look at our students in kindergarten, second grade, 9th grade, and 11th grade. So it has, we use it for two different purposes. We're, the 3 to 8 and 10th grade take this as part of the state testing. And the other grades we're taking again to inform instruction, to show growth, to look at the norms and inform instruction as well. And so we would pull the information from the NWEA to assist with literacy again, and math and numeracy and everything. So those are our two, uses for NWEA. I guess I'll go through a couple more.
Keep going.
Yeah, I'll just keep going. Okay, so on the second page, the first page, back of the first page, English Language Arts Common Core standards. We have, several years ago, we developed some very, very strong units that address the Common Core and assessments that go with the Common Core state standards. And so we also, at the end of units, we also work through assessing those in kindergarten and 5th grade. Again, that's the fall, the winter, spring, and that's primarily for teachers to inform instruction. The next one is Eureka Math, that's K to 5, that is at the end of the unit assessments. That also goes to teachers and parents, and that's ongoing whenever a unit is complete. And again, that also helps guide instruction. We also have little assessments during that time, like exit tickets and other little mini kind of assessments that help gauge where students are, where we may want more, to do more teaching. And then for 6 to 12, we have content areas, so end of the unit assessments. So this assesses proficiency with major concepts, skills, and graduation standards, and 21st century learning expectations. And that's ongoing, and it's for teachers, students receive that information as well, and parents. And we put in parentheses here IC because that is Infinite Campus. And a lot of our elementary parents don't use Infinite Campus because we don't set up elementary for parents to access it. But at the upper levels, you can access your students, a lot of things, like their schedule, what they're getting for grades. And that's why we put Infinite Campus in there, because that's when our students start having that information in Infinite Campus. And then, advanced placement courses and scores, and that's 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. The courses are scored 1 to 5 based on the exam in the spring, and the courses can be used for college credits based on a score of 3, 4, or 5, depending on the post-secondary institution where the student is looking to go. That's the family and student receives that information. Then the PSAT, SATs, that's in grades 10 and 11. Students choose to take the tests that are used to obtain scholarships or admittance to some colleges and universities. Multiple administrators administer that. That's for the family and student. Several years ago in the state of Maine, SAT was required for students to take, and it is not currently a requirement for all students, but we do have it in here because we do really work with families and students to make sure that we're offering that for them and providing information on where those hubs are going to be. We have the COGATS, which is a test in 3rd and 5th grade, and that really helps us when we're looking at our Excel classes and students that may have some real strengths in areas. So it looks and measures general and abstract reasoning skills that are tied to learning and problem solving. So verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, nonverbal reasoning. That's in the winter, and the teachers get that information. And again, that helps us when we're looking at students to teach them, but also, as part of the packet that we look at when we're looking at students for Excel. We have the main science assessment, and that's grade 5, 8, and 11. And again, this is through the state of Maine. This is not a district-sponsored activity. So it's the state assessment, and it assesses the understanding of Maine science and engineering standards, which are the next generation science standards. We give that in the spring, and the teachers receive that information. We send it to parents once we receive that information. And then we did add formative assessment in here, which are mostly, either homegrown kind of assessments or assessments that teachers collaborate and work on and develop together. So classes, classroom tests, exit tickets, written assessments, problem sets, anything that will help to inform instruction. And then we also added on here, because we can't escape this, and this is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. This is the national test. And we often get tapped to do that at 4th grade, 8th grade, and 12th grade, usually in the winter time. And we do not receive a breakdown of our student performance. It's the national test, so it kind of shows up in a national norming process and national reporting process. So those are an exhaustive list, I think, of what we do. And it looks like a lot, and it is a lot. There are some grade levels that get, that have more of a focus than other grade levels. Like sometimes we feel from 5th grade, because they have the, they have the COGATs, they've got the science, they've got, so we really try to balance things as best as we can, and we're really cognizant of when we're asking students to participate in some of these tests. So, like with the COGATs, it's not like a state test where you have a short window, so sometimes we flux that a little bit, depending on, how the students are doing with testing. If they've just come off of a big test, we're not gonna test them with the COGATs right after that, so that's that. Yes,
I'm sorry.
yes.
Do you have, any pre-work that you do with students for PSAT or SAT?
We do have some, but it's not teaching to the test. Like, we'll work just on some of those strategies, or some of those, how when you get into the SAT, some of those reasoning things, this or, those things. We may incorporate some of that in class, but we don't
Teach to the
right.
test, okay.
Thank you, first of all, for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work, and to just kind of put it all together in a matrix, I sincerely appreciate it. Just a couple questions as you were talking. The dial, it's a screen before kindergarten. Is that something that, when you say before kindergarten, is that done over the summer? Is it done the first week of kindergarten? The kids that enroll within a day or two, do they actually go to the dial, or is that something because they're now in the classroom, you don't use dial? Could you just?
Sure. So we have kindergarten registration usually in May, April to May, and parents sign up to bring their student in for the dial screening at that time. So it's normed by age. So the students that register the day before school, they will take it as well. Yes, we make sure that we try to get everybody to have the test. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is great information. Not every school does that,
Right,
so it's a credit to our
right.
district
Yes,
that we do
yes.
that kind of screening and talk to the parents, so thankful for that.
Sure.
The early literacy assessments,
Mhm.
So these are all different, like the alphabet, the LSF chart, the Haggerty, Words Their Way, and the Fry. Those are 5 completely different assessments, is that correct?
Correct.
And are all students assessed in those, or does it come up by need or concern?
All students are assessed if they can be assessed. Yes.
Understood.
Yes.
Okay. And then, if they're at their point, they're not reassessed later on because it says as needed, so are all students reassessed in the winter and are all students reassessed in the spring, or do some
If
achieve
they-
out, so to speak?
Yes, if they know all of this, we don't need to keep testing them, correct?
Great.
Yeah.
The benchmark assessment is
Mhm.
Fontes and Pinnell, correct?
One of them, yes, one of them can be Fontes and Pinnell. Sometimes we use Reading A to Z as
Okay.
well.
And reading A to Z is computerized, correct? Is reading A to Z
You can
computerized?
pull it, I think you print it off the computer. It's not, you don't sit them in front of a computer, you print it off.
And it's a benchmark assessment,
Yes,
right? It's
it's
like
a-
just where they
yes,
are, right?
yes.
Alright, and then the NWA is mandated for grades 3 through 8 and 10th, right?
Yes.
That's state mandated test.
Yes,
And that is a growth test.
yes.
The state is using as a, I don't know how they're using it.
There's,
but
so
they're-
1/3 of it, I think it's 1/3. 1/3 of it is grade level material. The other parts of it are the growth pieces. So it fluctuates up and down depending on how they answer the
So
questions.
for 3rd grade, for example, they have a certain number of ones that are straight third grade questions, whether or not you answered higher or lower, you know, so, but the rest of the test is measured based on, you get it right, you know this, you get it right, then you go up to a higher level testing.
That test, I'm assuming is in the spring, the state assessment one, that's the one that counts in the spring, am I right? Like they don't, are there third grade level questions in the fall, winter, and spring assessment of the math?
I'm gonna,
When they take the through year
yeah,
in the spring,
Yeah.
that
That's
is the
the one.
third grade, yes. So like the third grade will have third grade material at that time. When we do it like in this fall, they will also have third grade, but it won't be a third of the questions, cause we don't take the state part of that test till the spring.
So the test in the springtime is longer, so,
Right.
I mean, I'm assuming it's, cause the typical math is around 50 questions, give or take,
Right.
depending on how the kid
Right.
goes. So they take like
Yes.
80 questions in the spring, is
no,
that
No.
so
fair?
I'm looking at Tina, cause she
It's
just
the same,
administers
it's the
these,
same
yeah.
amount
Right.
of questions.
Yes, yeah.
So they adjust, the through year is adjusted, the
Right.
NWA is adjusted for the through year, so it's kind of like a separate version of the NWA
Yeah.
with those, so they take 1/3 of the, I'll say 60 questions.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
20 of them are gonna be based on specifically third grade, and then the other ones go up and down based on how kids answer.
Wow.
I know, it's complicated in my mind.
Yeah, it is, and it is what it is. I'll come back to that, I just wanted to kind of get some clarification stuff. The ELA CCSS, that's district created assessments, right? Eureka Math is the book series,
Yes.
right, our math reading series. So those are benchmark assessments, right? The content area interviews are benchmark assessments, right, because it's just end of, as you finish content, as you finish a unit, it's a
Yes.
unit test, right?
Yes.
AP courses, that's just an AP course, and you either, that's benchmark
That's
assessment,
right.
you get
It's
5 or
all-
4
you
or
get it
3 or 2,
right.
that's all there's to it,
Yeah.
right? The PSAT and SAT, my question there was, do we know what our participation rate is? Like what percent of our 10th graders are taking the PSAT and what percent of our 11th graders are taking the SAT?
We can get that information, I can't tell you right now,
Okay.
but
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Alright, cause I know that's like, if you look at schools comparison online, like they report that.
How many people take it, yeah.
Well, what the average score
Yeah,
is, so I'd be interested in, what's that percentage of students taking it, additional
Yeah,
score.
we can get that.
The COGAT, is that do all students take the COGAT?
All students in third grade and fifth grade.
So all do, okay, so it's a screener.
I'm gonna preface that.
That-
If they are a student who has an IEP that has a cognitive test in their IEP, they do not need to take the test.
Okay, I think I understand
Okay.
that. Alright, basically where it's appropriate, if it's not appropriate.
Well, right, but if students who have an IEP have been tested for their intellectual.
Right, they've already had it, so.
So they don't
that's- we do it.
necessarily-
They don't necessarily, yeah.
Okay, now,
Don't need to read
thank
that.
you for clarifying that for me. The main science assessment, is that considered a benchmark? Or is that considered an achievement test? Cause I don't know how you get the results back. Do you get the results back as this many kids are on grade level, or is it this many students pass the test?
We get it back on, like, if they meet, exceed.
The
The
test,
test.
so it's a benchmark,
Yes.
essentially it's
Yes.
a benchmark, right? Formative assessments and formative assessments, and those are all good things,
Right.
in this grade. And then the NAEP, of which sometimes we're invited to
And sometimes
participate,
we're
and
not.
sometimes we're
Sometimes
not,
we
right?
get invited,
And
yeah.
maybe, we all get in there and, so we're kind of all put in. I did have one other question about the NWEA math growth. You mentioned the IC, that the, content
Infinite
area,
Campus.
or the Infinite Campus.
Mhm.
Do we put the NWA, scores on Infinite Campus as well for the 6th through 12th graders?
We do put assessment scores in. So even benchmark assessments sometimes go in, especially at the lower levels. So yes, I can't say 100% of the time, all the time, because we don't have one person designated to do that, but we try to get it all in.
My biggest concern and question, right, and why I had to do this, and thank you, that really helps. I mean, we can see, as a board member, it allows me to talk to the community, like, we have a lot of benchmark information. I'm actually really happy that we have a lot of benchmark information for our kindergarten through 5th grade, because, like, they change so quickly at that age level. You're constantly adjusting your instructions, so it's really important that we have these and that our staff is trained so well and so used to doing them, right? So I think that is wonderful, and, I'm not against any of the testing that we're doing. It seems like it's well laid out. My concern is that we don't, in this list, we don't actually have an achievement test. We we actually don't know what percent of any grade level is achieving at that grade level. The NWA is not that kind of test. It is a diagnostic growth test, and they are trying to massage it to count it as that. But the problem is the NWA compares a group of kids, just take a 4th grade group, and compares it to all 4th grades across the nation as their norm. It's not criterion reference. It's not reference to 4th grade material. It's reference to 4th graders across the nation. And if we just take our understanding of probably the most significant event that's happened to education in the last 5 years was COVID. And we know, it's been well publicized nationally, that students in schools across lost about a year and a half of instruction, up to 2 years of instruction in that time. And what we're doing is we're comparing everyone's 4th grade students to all students who lost about 18 months to 2 years of instruction. And so we're saying, oh, we're normal with everybody else. So we don't actually know what the impact is, right? And I would ask as a state, we don't know the impact. So I can't control the state, but I am trying to advocate for Noble here, and just saying, I do think it's important for us as a district to consider looking for achievement tests so we can actually answer that question. And so we have these growth tests and we have these benchmarks, but what are we actually pointing to? You know, in having that for our district and our staff and our community look at it and say, hey, we know that our district is doing a great job, right? That's me personally, that's what I would like to see.
So what is the bar though that you're looking at? If we're not comparing to other districts across the country, or even in the state, what are we looking for?
So an achievement test is specifically designed, it's a standardized test,
Mhm.
right? That's designed to just measure that grade level's material. So a 4th grader, give an example of a 4th grader, takes a 4th grade level achievement test, right? And they get the score on that achievement test, and that's what score they have to get doesn't change ever during the year. NWA constantly changes the scores that kids make for proficiency or not proficiency. Achievement tests don't. That's the score. You make it or you don't, right? And if you make it far above, they'll give you that information, but there's a cutoff. And so it's an achievement. It's like saying, okay, so if I'm a teacher in 4th grade and the kids take the test, right? And 60% of my kids are at grade level. That's okay, that's good to know. I know exactly which kids are at grade level, right? If they're above, if they're below. But now I know achievement. Now I'm looking at their growth work and saying, okay, these kids who are below grade level, right? They're not there. They really need to grow at an accelerated rate. We need to look at those kids and target those kids and figure. And I know we're doing that. I don't question that we're doing that. I know we're doing that, but we just don't have any idea. Is it 60% of our kids are on grade level? Is it 40% of our grade level? Kids are on grade level? Is it 80%? We just don't know.
But we do get some of that stuff from the NWBAs,
But
right?
that is not an achievement test. It's not an achievement
But
test.
it compares students,
Within,
all 3rd grade students who take it in the country. You get a percentage of where you are, right?
But not based on 3rd grade criteria. It's 3rd graders compared to 3rd graders. It's a norm. We have to understand there's a difference
I
between a
understand.
criterion reference test, which is an achievement test,
Yeah.
and a norm reference test, which is the NWA. They are different tests. They
Josh.
cannot do the same thing.
Do you have an example of so I understand, I was a special ed
Yeah.
person, so like,
Yeah.
we're talking like Kaufman Test of Educational Achievement or something
Yeah.
that's
The Iowa skills,
Yeah,
basic
yeah,
skills test is
So,
a California
Are
achievement
you,
test.
are you asking for us to like implement another type of achievement test
I'm
like,
saying
across the
we
board?
do not have an
Right,
achievement
no,
test.
what you're saying absolutely is accurate in terms of like the NWAs and things like that, because the choices that have been made
Right.
at the state level in terms of what that is.
Right.
So but I guess that's my question, is like,
Yeah. My
an
suggestion is
additional-
I think we should have an achievement test.
Can we pull information a different way? That was like
Yeah.
report card state, like for elementary kids, report card state, like 1st grade reading level is, and I don't know the letters off the top of my head, but C to G. And you get on your report cards, progress updates throughout the year, like your kid mid-year, we're hoping they're at this. They are, or they're above, or they're below, like, can we, and then math has like, they need to hit these things, are they proficient, have they met, like, can we, I guess, take information we're already collecting, we're
Right.
already doing, and kind of put that together, like how many of our kids are L readers at the point they're supposed to be L readers during the year for that.
and that is
like,
exactly what you do. I mean,
yeah,
that's
because I mean, we
exactly
have all
what
that,
our-
like,
right,
yeah,
you're
parents, we
doing.
get all that information, we know exactly where our kids are and how they're doing, and, but I see like as a district, like, if you're not a parent, you wanna know how they're doing, so you
Yeah.
wanna see that. But, I mean, in theory, we have like, that is, I think, all the daily.
That's a lot of testing.
Yeah.
And you wanna add another one?
I don't disagree. What I'm saying is we have a huge gap. There's a blind spot in our district. And self-admitted, it is a blind spot. We don't know.
We
We
didn't say,
truly don't.
Well,
we did not say,
Okay,
we do not
we know we don't have an achievement test. We can agree that.
We know where our students are falling at the
We
grade.
do not have, according to this, I wanna be clear, this information, there is not an achievement test in this matrix. Is that true or false? That's what I'm asking.
There's not a formal achievement test
But there are
based on like,
assessments.
yeah, but
Yeah,
there are
but
assessments.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know
there are
where the
assessments.
kids are, but you
There-
know where the kids are at
Right.
for what they should know for that grade.
There are four
So-
different kinds of assessments, and they all have different purposes, right? So, like, yes, there's a ton of assessments on here, but they all serve different purposes. A benchmark assessment, it's a benchmark, they did it, okay, we move on. It's a summative kind of assessment, right? And we have lots of benchmarks. We have screeners, which are diagnostic, right? Your DIAL, your NWA is diagnostic, it tells what the kid knows and what the kid doesn't know, and so you can adjust your instruction accordingly, right? So you have diagnostic, you have benchmark, you have growth test, which the NWA is also a growth test, because not only does it diagnose, it can say this is the difference from year to year, right? So it has the growth. The achievement tests are totally different. You can't use benchmark data to say you've met an achievement standard, right? So like an Iowa basic skills test, if you just, that's an example of an achievement test, right? Or a California achievement test, right? It's not like they take a textbook of 3rd grade and make that into a test. The questions are like formulated by professional teams that a 3rd grader should be able to answer. Or if it was designed for a 4th grader, it'd be that a 4th grader should be able to answer based on their education. It's a completely different kind of test. And I'm just saying, we don't have it. And so we don't really know, that's my, we don't really know how we stand as a district. Right, that's my argument, and it's my concern, and I'm concerned about COVID. We know as a fact there was a huge drop down, and we're using the NWEA, which is completely inappropriate to do it. You're norming to, all 3rd graders lost 18 months, so they're fine. They're not fine. It's not fine.
Except for though that this district did an incredible job.
I'm not
I
saying
have a
they
3rd
did.
grader.
Please, no,
So
I'm
like
not
this
saying
district,
that.
like I mean, the 3rd graders, like I'm blown away by what those 3rd graders are doing, like.
So I think the administration's done a great job of putting together this information, and I know that for me, when I get information, it kind of begets more questions. So I would suggest that to sort of streamline the process, we think about some things that we maybe want to hear, and we can funnel that through me, and we can,
Sure.
come up with
Sounds
some
good.
answers to more questions that we might have.
Thank you. And I do
Does that make
appreciate the
sense?
time that you put towards this and the time for discussion. Thank you.
Because I guess I go back to what I was trying to ask at the beginning. What are you recommending we measure against?
And
I'll funnel that through
be, you know,
Yep.
and, you know, I'm sure that this is raising
Because
questions from other
do we follow, national curriculum right now?
We use the Common Core.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's what, I'm assuming that's the questions NWA
Right.
come from,
Right,
right?
that 30% measures, yeah. Got it. Okay, moving on to
Moving
the
on.
other
Sure,
updates,
sure.
yes.
So the other, question that Josh had asked was about, classroom breaks. And before I pass this out, I want a captive audience. So the question came in as relocating students, because there's some question out in the community about, or some concerns in the community about hearing my child's class had to relocate because of a certain behavior going on in the class. So I just kind of want to go through that a little bit before we talk about specific numbers. So it's complex. It doesn't sound like it is, but it is complex. So I'm going to start back to the state legislative rules around seclusion and restraint. And what that is, and what that says, is that if you are in a school and you have a student who is having trouble for whatever reason that trouble is, it is very specific that you cannot touch the child. You cannot physically move a child, you cannot, you can deflect if somebody's going to hit you, you can deflect so that you are not injured. The only time that you can put your hands on a student is if they are in imminent danger of harming themselves or harming another person. So with that, sometimes in the classrooms, and you will see sometimes at the lower level, this is a little more predominant as students are learning, you will see that they are having trouble adjusting to, you know, learning the routines, and maybe for some reason have, you know, a time when they are a little more frustrated or their behavior gets a little more escalated. We have very little options when that happens if a student does not willingly want to leave the classroom to go with an adult for a break. So one of the things that they do is if a teacher has gone through the whole repertoire of strategies that he or she knows and is comfortable doing, and then can ask for some support. So any teacher in any of our elementary buildings can pick up a phone and ask for some support. And what that does is either it's a principal or an assistant principal, the behavior interventionist at the school, sometimes the school counselor will come down and help. So, or a special education teacher, depending on, you know, if the child is known or, you know, to the special education department or anything like that. So the teacher, the extra adult, and I mean extra meaning just an extra pair of extra expertise, can come in, and that way that allows the class to leave the room for two purposes. So they leave the room, so that gives an option for that student that's having trouble, time and respect for privacy, to calm down with another adult, so the child is not left alone, there's another adult in the room, and the classroom, the students, do not have to participate in watching what's happening until that child settles down. So it's respect for that student, it's respect for the students that are around that student, because it can, you know, it may get noisy, you know, if somebody's crying, you know, you wanna protect the dignity of all students. And so when we say break, we are not talking a classroom relocates for a half hour. We're talking a classroom may go for a walk around the building and come back into their classroom and everything is all set, meaning that student has successfully left to reset or has already reset and is in the room waiting for their class to come back. So I wanted to frame that just so that we're all under the same idea about what that means when we say a class is relocated. Now, I'm not gonna say all the time it's under 3 minutes or under 5 minutes, it's an individual situation, but I would say to you that most of our administrators would tell you that it is not a half hour, it's not 20 minutes, it's not 25, there are cases sometimes when that may happen, but that's not the norm. The norm is a quick reset, walking through the building, maybe walking through the library and walking back, or doing any of the motor activities that you just saw downstairs. So those, like I said, I wanted to make sure we're all understanding what that means when we say a classroom is taking a break or a classroom is relocated, that is what it means. So this is the data that we have collected. Now I'll wait until we pass this out, so I'll explain it after. Let's see. Yeah. So I have alphabetized this by town, and the first number is going to be 22-23 school year. So Huzzy School, there were 8 classroom breaks for the whole year, and that was for 3 students. For Knowlton School, there were 5 classroom breaks for 4 students. So this year, thus far, at Huzzy School, there's been 1. Knowlton School has been none. Lebanon for 22-23, Hanson School had 12 breaks for 4 students. Lebanon Elementary had 5 breaks for 4 students. And then this year, thus far, Hanson School has had 6 breaks for 2 students, and Lebanon Elementary has had none. North Berwick Elementary School last year had 5 breaks for 3 students. And for the 23-24 school year, 1 break for 1 student thus far. So that is what we have. We're not, having breaks at the middle school, the high school, or MHA. So that's why we just reported the elementary level score, UK5.
I just wanna add to this is a great report, thank you. Something I think that's true with this too, is it's not like repetitive situations, oftentimes after it happens, there's either a teacher switch or maybe a student, like a classmate switch kind of thing. If there are triggers known to prevent, it's not like, oh, okay, well, they did it again, there are steps being taken to try and adjust the environment to do so, yeah.
Thank you for that information and the explanation.
Sure.
Any more things?
Other business.
Just other, yeah, we move on to other.
So just going back to, we're gonna talk about the Berwick Parade.
Yeah.
But then we also got an invite to the North Berwick Parade. So the North Berwick Parade is
Saturday after Thanksgiving.
right after
at 4
Thanksgiving at
o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting that out there because you got the direct invite to Berwick, but you didn't get the direct invite for North Berwick. So if you're interested in North Berwick, if you could just, or able to do that, if you could just email me so I could email them. And do you know what it entails?
No.
Okay.
Walking.
Maybe I should get more
She was
information.
supposed to, she was a little bit,
far?
like, okay, I don't think it's far.
Okay.
Cause we were gonna see if the PTO wanted to do like a walk
Okay.
float or something.
Okay.
It seems like there wasn't very much participation, so I think she was trying to push participation.
It's just a tough
And
day.
it's exactly, it's
Yeah.
Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Oh, they're both the
at
same.
4.
No,
Oh, no, the
it's
other one's
the
the
second,
following.
December 2nd.
December
Yeah.
2nd
is
is
Berwick
Yeah.
at 1:30.
We had a few people who were on for that.
Right. I think the culmination for North Berwick is the tree lighting.
Yes.
At 4:30, is it 4:30? I think it's 4:30. But I can send that email out to you
That'd be great.
tomorrow, so you can look at it, and then if you wanna just respond, that would be helpful, so I can respond back.
And the parade is at 4 and the tree lighting is at 4.
Right,
It's a
right,
shorter
right,
parade
it's a
than the,
short parade.
shorter parade than Berwick.
That's a
Yes,
good
you're
point.
right.
Walking day, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
at 4, tree lighting's at 5:30.
Okay,
Oh.
I was a little.
Okay.
It's face painting, raffles, giveaways, pictures of Santa, Mrs. Claus. It's all good.
Other-
And that's mine,
other- other?
that's mine.
I have, yeah, I have a.
Okay.
When you get to it.
Yeah, I think
We're good, thank you.
other?
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I had questions, about I guess it was a bullying situation in at the high school. You sent out a memo, district-wide?
Yes.
Okay, so one of my questions has to do with, you contacted North Berwick and the Berwick Police, does that mean that it did not include a Lebanon student? Or was Lebanon left out?
Lebanon
Because-
was not left out.
So you also contacted the York County Sheriff?
We contacted the towns where
It
the
was
students were
incurring.
impacted.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, so we
no.
would have
so was it,
contacted.
I don't
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
left
yeah.
out like.
Yeah.
No,
No,
But
it wasn't necessary
no,
to
it was
contact
not
them.
necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question.
That's good.
Okay, and then another thing has come up where, multiple active TikTok and Smart Chat accounts are bullying, harassing, and embarrassing Noble Middle School students. Anything about that? Do you know anything
We
about that?
know of a TikTok account that I believe was at Noble 7 or 8, I wanna say. And what that means is it's been shut down 7 or 8 times. So every time it gets shut down, it gets restarted and they add a number to it. So like it started at 1, now it's at 8 because it's been shut down 7 times, it's on the 8th time. So that's not a staff-run TikTok, that's not a school piece, but we are aware of it, we are addressing when we can, It's not, you know, it's not something that will, you know,
So
The
it
social
yes.
media stuff is a big deal,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So it did sound like it was, targeting Noble Middle School students. And it was popping up daily.
Okay.
So, okay.
So what we,
I just wanna make sure that
Yes.
you're aware of
yes,
this,
we are,
because
Thank you.
yes,
if there
thank
was
you.
anything that went out district-wide, about this, I think
Yeah.
it sounds like.
You wanna talk about the 29th or, so,
Yeah,
one
go
of,
ahead.
so,
Mhm.
that, I don't think is necessarily what has triggered this for us, but we've had some conversations with, the PD, and I've invited folks, the Lebanon Select Folk, the North Berwick, and the Berwick Town Managers, to attend a meeting with us on November 29th at 8:00 in the morning, to talk about, sort of rallying our groups together to set up a parental awareness, regarding the use of TikTok and the use of all the social media stuff, and how we can, like, it's not something that the schools can do by themselves. How else can we get parents involved in understanding what their kids are doing? So, we've had a great response from the local, PD, et cetera, and they're just gonna meet on the 29th and talk about, like, how can we set up a community forum about this whole issue, cause it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Is this bullying on TikTok going on during school? Is this after school? What, I mean, this is the first I've heard of it,
It's,
so.
it's in general.
Yeah, I don't,
It's in general, it's hitting, you know, it's hitting kids' phones
Yeah.
and, and that kind of stuff, because they're all linked.
Yeah.
So, it's. Okay, so, and is that gonna involve police too?
Oh, yeah, yeah, they're all attending, including the, I invited the, sheriff from York County. So,
Would we be invited to attend that, or?
you may, we were just doing a brainstorming session, but you're welcome to attend, I'll send it out to you as well. I was trying to get a group together that could start thinking about how to impact the community in a good way.
Any other?
I don't have a overall PTO update, from each town, but the PTOs in general are doing a cereal drive through Monday. You can drop off at Knowlton, Hussey, or North Berwick, and I believe there's a church in Lebanon that you can drop to. But basically it's for the backpack program, we did it last year, and, the backpack program supports kids who have unstable food situations at home, and so this is so they can go home with a full box of cereal on longer breaks. And the hope is to collect enough for all 4 of the longer breaks. But if you have cereal boxes you want to drop off by Monday, please do.
Any kind?
Anytime.
Okay.
And it's like,
Lucky Charms.
it's fun, well, yeah, exactly. The thing is, it's supposed to be
Magical
fun,
delicious.
so to pick the more fun cereal, like, cause it's exciting and they see it. And we did the domino effect of kindness last year through 3 or 4 of the schools, where we lined them up and like kids came out and watched, like we did in here through the horseshoe, and some of the gyms and stuff, so I'm not 100% sure if that's happening this year, but we'll still promote the videos. and things
Stack is
from
gonna
last
make
year.
it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
Any other? Thank you for sharing that.
No, and thank you guys for the building tour.
That-
Appreciate
that
you
is-
having that, yes.
Yep, that was gonna be exciting.
Sorry.
No, and before we went into executive session, I was gonna say thank you, so thank you for all of us. Any other?
I do have actually one more other. We'll talk about it in budget season, but we applied with the York County Sheriff's Department for a potential SRO grant for Lebanon. And it has been approved. But now the question is, it's not free. And the district will need to pay in for that. So it's gonna be part of our budget discussion, but it's just important for you to know that, Sheriff King is gonna come to a board meeting to talk with you about it in the future. For him, he just feels like it would be such a huge support because the response time will be so much quicker if we were able.
How much is that grant for? Do we have to match it?
Yeah, we have to match it. It would cost us about $64,000 a year, so it's not a cheap thing, but it is something that, Lebanon, I will advocate for, 100%, we can do it. But anyway, anyways, I wanted to give you that update, we just got word on that, last week.
This is a resource that can be used for teaching kids about social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the sheriff's department has been great, actually, the York County, the Main State Police have been great too, they do their best, but it's hard to manage a pretty vast area.
Any other? Final public input.
Kelly from North Berwick. I have a lot of experience working with kids. I just wanted to quickly add in, I think the TikTok thing is really great. If you guys, when you're having your meeting with the PD and stuff, you might wanna think about adding in Snapchat into that conversation. See it firsthand, it's a lot of bullying and things that are going on beyond school hours.
Mark Willard from North Berwick. The TikTok incident, it made national news, which saw it today. And it was talking about forcing kids into bullying and fighting.
Our particular,
This district?
Made national news, not this district.
Oh, just
in
in
general.
general. Thank you for the.
I'm sorry.
Go, wait, what?
I generalized it, my brain didn't go there.
And
Yeah.
did we have another public input?
The behaviors,
On the state
data.
data?
Oh, Holly from Berwick.
Okay.
So I'm not I understand the policy, I understand it's a state policy. I understand that if it happens once or twice, I guess as a parent who has a straight A student daughter who has been placed in classes with some heavy hitters, I'm not sure if the data you have takes into consideration events like the DARE program, things like that, that also get interrupted by behaviors and have to get canceled or reworked somehow. I do believe that behaviors are affecting education, and I would love it if you guys could relook at policies where teachers could feel supported, or the policies were consistently followed for each family. Because I do think it's more disruptive than we're giving them credit to. Like, we have so many wonderful resources in MS 8060. We've got a yurt, we've got the Herd Academy, we've got things that other districts don't have. So when it's a consistent issue, and what about when we're not removing the classroom from the behavior? What happens when the behavior's in the classroom, disrupting the classroom, and then the child leaves the classroom? There's a lot of wasted time from those behaviors that aren't on that report. So if it's the same student and it's a consistent issue and it's happening more than 3 times or 5, what are the policies, and where, what can we do to not be so disruptive for our kids, for the other kids' education?
Yeah, I wanna extend that a little bit, on the disruption in classrooms. When you're having a problem with a child, do you automatically notify the parent to come to the school to help work the situation out if the child's out of control?
So typically, public input is for suggestions or feedback, not for, it's not a question and answer, but I'm gonna answer that question tonight. We always tell parents if there is a disruption to the classroom. If there is a break that needs to happen, if there's a student who is dysregulated for a period of time, a parent is notified. And oftentimes, there's a lot of work that goes on even before that happens, when we know if there are challenging behaviors or trauma, or any kind of thing that's gonna cause a negative response to a child. We are in contact with families, and we're working with families.
Okay, I'm glad you clarified that, because when you were discussing this, You didn't mention calling the parents at all, you just mentioned calling extra grown-ups to help with the child and remove them or walk them around the school, whatever.
Right, because we,
know.
yeah,
Me being a parent, when my son stepped out of line, I got called and immediately left work.
right.
Okay.
So we were responding to a specific question that was asked by a board member,
Mhm.
and we answered fully the question that was asked by the board member. It wasn't about parents, it was about how many, breaks were happening during the school day for the years in the schools. So,
Okay,
yeah.
I just wanted to.
Mhm.
Any other public input? So at this point, we need a motion to go into executive session